You are on the ground. You don't remember falling. The wooden sword is somewhere behind you. Your hands are empty. The clearing is quiet in the way that only gets quiet after something violent. Musashi is already walking away. He doesn't look back. He never looks back. Your left shoulder will not move correctly for 3 days. You will not tell him. You have been here on this ground, in this exact confusion 11 times in the past 2 weeks, and somehow it gets worse. But to understand why you stay, we need to go back, not to last month, to the morning you arrived with a wooden sword and a belief that skill could be taught by someone willing to teach it. The year is 1608. You are 19 years old. You have walked 4 days from Kyoto to find this man. Japan is officially at peace. The Tokugawa shogunate has won its war. The country has exhaled, but the swordsmen haven't, because peace doesn't dissolve the hierarchy of who can and cannot be beaten. You grew up watching your father lose a duel over a dispute about a road. He survived. His reputation didn't. That's the thing about feudal Japan no one explains to you as a child. It's not the sword that ruins a man, it's what the sword says about him. You decided young that if the sword was going to define you, you would make it. Say something worth hearing. Musashi's name reaches you through a merchant who passes through your village once a year. 60 duels, 0 defeats. A man who fights with 2 swords simultaneously and invented the style himself. A man with no school, no master, no title. Here's the part they don't show you in the stories. Finding Musashi in 1608 is not like finding a school. There is no sign, no address, no one to ask without looking like a fool. You find him by following the rumors backward: a duel in Nara, a dispute in Edo, a period of isolation in the mountains west of Kyoto. The trail leads to a valley where someone says a man has been living alone for 2 years, carving wood and refusing visitors. When you arrive, Musashi is sitting outside a small wooden structure, sanding a piece of timber. He does not look up. You introduce yourself. You tell him you want to train under him. He says nothing for a long time. Then, put your sword down, pick up this wood, sand until the grain runs smooth. That is your first lesson. You don't understand it for 6 months. The first week is disorienting in a specific way, not because the training is hard, but because there is no training. He sends you into the forest to carry water. He has you hold a stance for 2 hours in silence. He asks you to watch a river and describe what you see, then tells you that what you described was wrong. You are from Kyoto. You studied under 2 instructors before this. You know Kinjutsu fundamentals, and every day here makes you feel like you know nothing, not great. On the 9th day, he attacks you without warning. You're eating. He moves from across the clearing, full speed, and the bakken connects with your right forearm before you've processed that he stood up. You ate breakfast, he says. You were not here. You do not sleep well that night. You do not sleep well for the next 3 weeks. Because you now know that any moment eating, sleeping, washing in the stream could be the moment he decides to teach you something. This is, you will eventually understand, entirely the point. Musashi does not believe in kata, the formal repetition of choreographed sequences that every other school in Japan uses to build technique. He believes kata creates beautiful movement and predictable fighters. He wants you unpredictable. His method is this: he puts you in situations where your trained responses fail. Then he watches what emerges from underneath the failure. Your master taught you to block here, he says one afternoon, tapping your shoulder. So every time someone attacks here, you block. Your body does it without asking your mind. You are not fighting. You are running a script. He pauses. Scripts lose duels. The first month breaks something in you that you didn't know was there. A certainty. The quiet confidence that told you your training was a foundation. Musashi finds every assumption you have about your own competence and removes it, not cruelly, but surgically and without apology. He never apologizes. That is the part that stays with you. Other masters, you've heard, apologize for the difficulty. They acknowledge the pain as a gift, frame it, soften it. Musashi doesn't. The pain is information. Information doesn't require softening. By the 6th week, you stop expecting praise. That is, apparently, the first correct thing you've done. He begins teaching you the 2-sword style Knight and Nichi. Not as a technique, but as a philosophy. 2 swords means your opponent cannot predict which hand is your intent, he explains. But this is not the point. The point is that you do not know which hand is your intent until the moment arrives. You practice this for weeks. It doesn't feel like skill. It feels like trying to pat your head and rub your stomach, except the failure costs you a bruise across the ribs. But somewhere around the 2nd month, late one afternoon, In a drill you've run 40 times, something shifts. You stop deciding, your left hand moves before you have a thought about your left hand. And for one moment, a single second, you understand what he means by emptiness. You don't tell him, he already knows. He walks past you that evening without stopping and says, almost quietly, "There it is. That's it. That's the whole thing." 2 words from Miyamoto Musashi, and you feel like you've won something you can't name. The 3rd month is harder than the first 2 combined, because now that you've had the glimpse, the single second of real understanding, you want to live inside it, and every attempt to reach for it pushes it further away. You cannot chase the state, he tells you one morning. The moment you look for it, you are already outside. You run, you train, you carry water at AM, you eat in silence, you try to stop trying and end up trying harder to stop trying. This is where most students leave, you stay. Here's what Musashi never tells you, because he doesn't believe in telling what can be lived. He is testing not your technique but your attachment to the outcome of your technique. A swordsman who fights to prove he is skilled will always be one surprise away from failure. The proof-seeking is the weakness. He needs to see if you can let go of needing to be good and simply be. In the 4th month, he takes you on a journey. No explanation. You walk for 2 days to a valley where the remains of a famous duel took place years earlier. He stands in the center of the clearing and says nothing for 20 minutes. Sasaki. He says finally, he was more technically gifted than me, cleaner form, better trained. He turns and looks at you directly the way he almost never does. I arrived late. I made him wait. 3 hours in the sun while his composure cracked piece by piece. When the time came, I was empty. He was full of everything he'd been feeling while he waited. I had the advantage before the swords touched. You stand in that clearing. And understand that you've been studying the wrong subject entirely. You thought you came here to learn how to fight. You came here to learn how to not be afraid of losing. Turns out those are completely different skills. The 5th month changes you physically. You are leaner, faster, and quieter than you've ever been. You move through space differently, less like someone occupying ground and more like someone passing through it. Other people notice before you do. When you pass through the nearest village on an errand, a group of young men look at you and step aside without being asked to. It takes you a moment to understand why. You already know it, you just aren't carrying it like weight anymore. It never gets easier. You just get better at pretending. Then one day you realize you aren't pretending anymore. In the 6th month, Musashi gives you your one real test. Not a sparring session. A scenario. A local minor official has been harassing a farmer whose land borders the valley. He has sent men twice. The farmer is old. His son is away in service. Someone needs to deliver a message not with words, with presence, with the kind of stillness that communicates that whatever this man is considering, the cost has just increased beyond calculation. Go, Musashi says. Do not draw. Do not threaten. Do not raise your voice. Walk in, stand, wait, and let the room understand what you are. You already know how this ends, except you don't. You don't know if you're the kind of person this works for yet. You walk to the official's estate alone. Your heart rate is not what you expect. It's steady. When you step into the room and the official's men look at you, something happens that you cannot fully account for. The room settles, and then tightens, and then settles again into a new arrangement, a quieter one. The official hears your message. He does not respond. He nods. His men do not move toward you as you leave. Walking back through the valley, you start to cry. Not from fear, not from relief, from something you don't have a word for yet, the strange weight of finding out that you have become something you once only hoped to be. When you return, Musashi is exactly where you left him. Sanding wood. He doesn't ask what happened. He already knows. He says, "Sit." You sit. He puts down the wood. He looks at the mountains for a long time. Most men who study the sword want to become dangerous, he says. Dangerous is easy. Dangerous is just willingness to harm. What you went to today was different. You walked in as someone the room had to calculate. That is not danger. That is weight. He stands. You have the beginning of weight. Don't lose it by deciding you've earned it. He walks inside. The lesson is over. You sit there until it gets dark. Here's the part they don't show you in the histories of Musashi's students. Most of them left with technique. Good technique. Real technique. But only a few left with the thing underneath, the understanding that the sword is not the weapon. You already know what the weapon is. It's the quality of your attention, the depth of your stillness, the size of the silence you can hold while everything else breaks. You will train under him for one more year. You will be struck, confused, humiliated, and remade. He will never explain himself. He will never soften the difficulty. He will never tell you that you are good. But on the morning you finally leave walking the same road you arrived on, 4 days back toward Kyoto, you pass a boy, maybe 12 years old, watching you from a village gate. He watches you the way you once watched your father, looking for something to believe in, trying to read the future off someone else's face. You don't stop, but you look at him as you pass. And for just a moment you show him something worth seeing. Miyamoto Musashi will go on to write the Book of Five Rings, one of the most studied texts on strategy and mind in human history. He will never lose a duel. He will die at 62 in a cave, alone, completing his final manuscript 2 weeks before the end. He will not be remembered for being kind. He will be remembered for being right. You were one of the few people who understood that those two things were always the same thing.